Morning, everybody. Welcome to a bright, sunshiny day in New York City. It's not even
Can't
close.
see anything.
Can't see a thing from here. Beautiful as the view is from this room. Today is Pearl Harbor Day.
Yes, exactly.
And I lost long relatives. Went there on the 50th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, and with my wife, and we spent a week talking to Japanese veterans, U.S. veterans. It was just a wonderful historical time. It was very, very special. It's a day I take note of every. Anyway,
The day that live in infamy, right?
the date that will live in infamy.
Oil slicks is still coming up.
What's that?
The oil slicks is still coming up every day.
Yes. Are they still?
I think so.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
That's a beautiful memorial. All right, so all that's in the record. Sorry. Annual reports, written, printed annual reports have been distributed to the members. You all have had a chance to take a look at them. I think they're fabulous. I think that they were really, really done well. This is a Caroline job before she left.
And a Jeffrey Gordon
And a
job.
Jeffrey Gordon now.
Yes, sir.
Jeffrey Gordon job now. Okay. Sarah, if you will read the roll, then we can actually get into the agenda, which is fairly short.
It is indeed. We are today joined via Zoom in the 3 video conferences, all video conference rooms, all of which have been noticed in the public notice as open and accessible to the public. The public may also join via Zoom or telephonic link. So joining us today from our New York City office, we have our board chair, Al Carney, Jerry Romsky, our vice chair, Wellington Chen, and Lisa Gomez. In our Albany office for board members, we have Joan Sullivan, Adrian Swazerski, and Ken Evans. In our Buffalo office, Janice McKinney, all by herself out there. And then board members that are absent today are John Gardner, Phyllis Morris, and Beryl Snyder. We also have a number of senior staff around the tables of Albany and New York. We have Ruben McDaniel, our president. Paul Koopman is here in Albany, Ricardo Salomon, Steve Curro, Kim Ellis, Portia Lee, Nadine Fontaine, and Charlie Williams are here in Albany. With that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back to you. There are also folks joining us via Zoom, which will be noted on the record.
Welcome to Charlie Williams, your first board meeting, I think. And it's a pleasure to have you here. Your resume precedes you, sir. And it's really special. Thank you. Sarah's read the roll. Something else I wanted to. I wanted to announce that I've asked Joan Sullivan to chair the audit committee, just to get that in the record. And Joan has graciously accepted to do that. The audit committee is still 1 member short, and we're going to have to fix that at some point, Lisa.
No, it's just voluntold.
Second that nomination.
It's just voluntold.
You were volunteering. Good. In any event, let's move on the agenda. The first order of business, of course, is the minutes of the November 9th meeting. You all have had a chance to read them. Hopefully they're okay with everybody, but are there any questions or any proposed revisions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve? Thank you, Wellington.
Second.
Lisa, thank you very much for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the minutes are approved, and the resolution approving minutes is approved unanimously. The second order of business is the adoption of documents. It's the Gold Coast Library proposed financing, Mr. President.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to all of you. Behind tab 2, we have the transaction summary for the Gold Coast Public Library. We have Steve Kozier of DASNY to present from the staff, Natalia Pearson Farrar, Esquire of Golden Holly James, and Christopher Canada Esquire of Hodgkins Russ, or co-bond counsel in the transaction. So Steve, why don't you kick us off?
Great, thank you, Ruben. Good morning, all. Yesterday, the members should have received a notification that there's an amended transaction summary update for this financing from what went out in the original board mailing. The amended transaction summary update updates the name of the library from Gold Coast Public Library to its legal name of Gold Coast Public Library District. In the course of its business, the library refers to itself as Gold Coast Public Library. However, as I mentioned, its legal name is Gold Coast Public Library District. Therefore, today the board is being asked to adopt the necessary documents for Gold Coast Public Library District. The DASNY board adopted a resolution to proceed for this financing in March of 2021. And the members may recall that this is a new money financing and bond proceeds will be used to finance or refinance the acquisition of a parcel of land for the construction of a new library building on the site. Shortly after the board adopted the resolution to proceed, the transaction was placed on hold and it remained on hold until last month. So while it was on hold, the library was working with its architect on the design relative to its budget and with the town of Oyster Bay on certain details necessary for the local site plan approval. The town of Oyster Bay provided the site plan approval on November 15th. The project, as previously described to the board, is unchanged, except that the library has already purchased the property using a combination of funds on hand and 2 bond anticipation notes, one through the town of North Hempstead and the other through the town of Oyster Bay. So rather than bond proceeds being used to purchase the property directly as originally anticipated, bond proceeds will be used to pay off the bands as well as for the construction costs. With respect to other approvals, the DASNY seeker memo was completed. The library and the towns have approved the tax pledge and collection agreement, which Chris and Charles will describe shortly. And as reflected in the black line of the transaction summary update, DASNY staff is requesting an amended PACB approval this month. So the PACB resolution also reflects the legal name I described earlier. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them now, or I can take them after Chris and Charles provide an overview of the documents.
Steve, thank you. It's Al. The bond anticipation notes, are they identical? Do they both in amount and in form?
I may defer to Chris on the form, but as far as the amounts, no, they're not identical. In the transaction summary update, shows the one through the town of North Hempstead was for $560,000, and the one through the town of Oyster Bay is for $1,190,000.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Steve. Who's going to lead off?
Steve, it's okay with you? This is Chris Canada. I will lead off.
It's great.
Well, thank you, Steve, and good morning, DASNY board members and senior staff. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. As further detailed in our letter to the board provided last week, before you for consideration is the adoption of a bond resolution authorizing the issuance of multiple series of bonds at one or more times, and the adoption of a series resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $10.8 million of Gold Coast Public Library District revenue bonds. Proposed Series 2023 bonds will be issued pursuant to the proposed bond resolution and a series resolution. The bond resolution is a new resolution based on DASNY's new model resolution and constitutes the agreement between DASNY and the holders of the bonds issued under the bond resolution. Bond resolution contains the basic terms of that agreement, including the conditions for issuance of bonds, security for bonds, types of funds and accounts to be established for each series of bonds, events of default and remedies, as well as provisions relating to other matters such as amendments and defeasance. The bond resolution does not establish a debt service reserve fund, but provides that one may be established if authorized by a series resolution. I'll now turn our presentation over to my co-bond counsel, Charles Holly, to discuss the series resolution.
Charles, before you start, I just want to know for the record that Charles is replacing Natalia Pearson today.
Good morning. Thank you, President McDaniel. Good morning, Chairman Carney. Thank you, Chris, and good morning to DASNY board members and senior staff. We are further requesting that the board adopt a series resolution under the bond resolution entitled Series Resolution Authorizing Up to $10,800,000 Gold Coast Public Library District Revenue Bonds Series 2023, authorizing the issuance of the Series 2023 bonds to provide funds to finance, one, the refunding of certain bond anticipation notes issued by the town of North Hempstead and the town of Oyster Bay on November 3rd, 2022, the proceeds of which were used to finance the acquisition of certain real property and the building thereon in the town of Oyster Bay, Nassau County, New York. Two, the construction on such site of a new one-story, approximately 11,000 square foot, energy efficient, modern library building, with the foregoing to include original furnishings, equipment, machinery, apparatus, and ancillary or related site work required in connection therewith. And three, the cost of issuance. It is expected that the Series 2023 bonds will be issued in one fixed rate tax exempt series. The Series 2023 bonds will be special limited obligations of DASNY, payable solely out of the payments made by the library under a loan agreement on account of debt service for the Series 2023 bonds, referred to as the revenues. Payment of the Series 23 bonds is separately secured by the pledge and assignment of the revenues made pursuant to the bond resolution and the series resolution, DASNY's right to receive such revenues, the money and investments held in the funds and accounts established by the bond resolution and the series resolution with certain exceptions, and by the assignment by DASNY of the security interest in the pledge revenues, which Chris will describe, granted by the library under the loan agreement. No debt service reserve funds expected to be established for the Series 2023 bonds. Additionally, the Series 2023 resolution delegates to DASNY, to any DASNY authorized officer, the powers more particularly described in our letter to the board, including to determine the final terms of the Series 2023 bonds and to execute and deliver various documents. I will now turn it back over to Chris to discuss the loan agreement and the tax pledge and collection agreement.
Thank you, Charles. As mentioned, DASNY and the library will execute a loan agreement in connection with the issuance of the 2023 bonds. The loan agreement will require the library to make payments to the trustee for the holders of the Series 2023 bonds in amounts and at times sufficient to make timely debt service payments on the 2023 bonds. The loan agreement will also require the library to make payments sufficient to pay the fees, costs, and expenses of DASNY and the trustee with respect to the 2023 bonds. The loan agreement and the obligations of the library to make payments under it, general obligations of the library, a recurring annual tax in an amount sufficient to repay the library's obligation under the loan agreement was previously authorized pursuant to a referendum of the library approved on December 8th, 2020. The loan agreement will require the library to notify DASNY and the trustee of certain events that could affect the collection of adequate taxes to pay debt service and operating expenses. To secure its obligations to DASNY under the loan agreement, the library will grant DASNY a security interest in its pledged revenues, comprised of all public funds, all revenues received by the library from its operations, and all other income available to the library from any other source. Public funds consist of all monies apportioned or otherwise payable to the library by the state of New York or a political subdivision. The loan agreement will permit the library to incur additional long-term indebtedness secured by a parity lien on the pledged revenues, but not on public funds attributable to the tax referendum. To provide for the payment of debt service on the 2023 bonds, the library and the town of Oyster Bay, the town of North Hempstead, the trustee and DASNY will enter into a tax pledge and collection agreement. Pursuant to that agreement, the town of Oyster Bay and the town of North Hempstead agree to levy and collect the annual tax previously mentioned in an amount not less than the amount necessary for the library to pay principal, sinking fund installments, and interest on the 2023 bonds. So this concludes our presentation. Charles and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Steve. Are there questions? Hearing none, we're in an interesting situation. The board actually approved the resolution for this transaction back in March of 2021. And therefore, there is no request today for an approval unless there are concerns with the resolution itself. Are there any? Hearing none, then Sarah, do we renew our approval? Do we simply?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it was the resolution to proceed that was adopted back in March of 2021. So today it's the adoption of documents, which the board does have to approve.
Sarah's just told us what we have to do. Are there any questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution which will approve the process of creating documents? Sure. Thank you, Jerry. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wellington. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, it's the motion is approved, the resolution approved unanimously. I want to thank Christopher and Charles for being with us this morning. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. And I celebrate Christmas, gentlemen. So I offer folk an opportunity to hear me say Merry Christmas. But if you don't, then happy holiday will be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you and to members of the board and the staff as well.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
I couldn't say it any better.
Mr.
Take care.
President, it's your turn
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
with the mic.
As the chairman mentioned, you received your annual report for 2022. Just a couple of highlights. Fiscal year 21-22 completed 16 financings and approximately $9 billion. And in a stroke of luck, we also have a portfolio of more than 1,000 construction projects in an amount around $9 billion.
Congratulations.
No, it's been a great year. We did continue to do well on our MWBE and disadvantaged business commitments. The staff and team have done a great job. I do want to point out that this is Kim Ellis's second annual report. Again, another unqualified opinion. Kim and her staff all do a great job. Always plan to sign the engagement letter for the next annual report before we get this one published, but that's how it goes. They're working already on that annual report. I also want to just note that Jeffrey Gordon, the communications team, is responsible for content, the pictures, the format, and the writing, and the annual report really great job as well. This will be submitted to the various offices we have to submit to by statute. So we're pleased to have that. So thank you very much for support from that.
Second book of our projects, right? LaGuardia and New Paltz.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right. Let me say, and I always, if you know audit, and it's just unfortunately something I know a lot about. People say Kim Ellis got an unmodified opinion, and she did her second in a row. Never to be taken lightly. That's a huge accomplishment, especially given the myriad moving parts that DASNY has. It's just a huge accomplishment. And if Kim's on the phone, you don't have to blush too much, but the fact of the matter is that those of us who know what you have to do to produce an unmodified opinion all want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a group effort. I have a great staff.
That you do. Speaking of your great staff, want to alert the board that we will be sending to you before the calendar year end a draft budget for 23-24. That will come under separate cover for your board documents. Jeffrey Arm is working on that now. All the various units have reported into him their requests. Paul, Charlie, and I will be going over those requests over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll submit a draft budget.
When do we typically approve those? In March or something? Typically?
Yeah, statutorily, that's what haven't done by March, so typically come to the March board meeting, we'll have a budget presentation in the end of February to ask questions with detail before we ask your final.
Terrific.
So we'll get that to you. Then just a couple of highlights on the budget. You know, right now, we are in the process of filling positions as people retire. We're a little understaffed, but not too bad. Steve probably has the most employees, so some of the most understaffed. But the most pressing needs are in his group. We'll continue to work on IT and others. We also will have some significant budget items that will be around our IT, as you have heard over the past several board meetings. We're upgrading various systems. Our J.D. Edwards replacements being upgraded, and we're integrating our debt management system and updating that now. We continue to progress in our cybersecurity. So all of those things will be budget items that come up, and you'll see those as you look at the budget. Other than that, it should be fairly straightforward compared to other budgets. So look for that sometime before the year end. Quick update on our cannabis initiatives. In November, the Cannabis Control Board awarded 20 licenses to conditional adult use retail dispensaries.
Excuse me, Ruben.
Yes,
Ruben, can you speak up a little bit?
certainly. Let me
Thanks.
try to speak up, because I know the microphones are in the ceiling.
Better.
The Cannabis Control Board awarded 20 licenses to conditional adult use retail dispensaries. As you know, DASNY is working on securing leases and building out those facilities. I'm pleased to announce that last night we signed our first lease. The address is 248 West 125th Street. For those of you familiar with Harlem, if you stand at the Apollo and throw a baseball right across the street. So I'm really pleased that will be the first location. We are currently negotiating additional leases and look to have some of those complete negotiations by year end. And we will be commencing construction on the Harlem site post haste. So very exciting news about that.
Do they have to design that first, Ruben? What they design build team?
Yeah, the design and build team has been assigned already. They've done their initial assessments and have a preliminary design, but they will finalize the design. They'll be approved by our DASNY staff.
How big is that space?
Around 2,800 square feet, which is kind of the ideal space by Canada for its country.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a great accomplishment. We're pleased to get that.
Does the operator have a say in the design of it, or they just walk in and?
The operator has limited say. It's like walking into a pre-planned community, picking out your cabinet colors and your
Got it.
wall colors. They do have some
Got it.
say in the finished look. Hired 10 design build firms, all of whom have built cannabis dispensaries in other parts of the country. And so the cabinet and all of that will be very similar to the best of class. So
All New York firms.
they are all new. You mentioned Charlie Williams. I want to give you a quick update. Charlie has joined us a couple of days ago. Poor guy's been running nonstop since. But Charlie comes to us from the Division of Budget. As I mentioned last meeting, he had our DASNY in his portfolio, so he's familiar with our operations. He brings great budget experience, operational experience, as well as intangibles around understanding how the state works from budget and other programs. Charlie will be an officer of DASNY. I'll be asking you to approve that in January. That resolution will come in January. But we couldn't be happier to have Charlie on board. I want to give Charlie a chance to say a few words. Charlie?
Thank you, Ruben. And I couldn't be happier either. I want to say that both Ruben and the staff and the board members that I've met have been incredibly welcoming and collegial, and we've already been productive and hard at work here. I spent 30 years, 15 years in public service, 15 years in the private sector. Lastly, working at Division of Budget with Adrian and some of the other folks here. So it's been a great experience so far, and I look forward to our work together.
Pleasure to have you. Look forward to meeting you personally.
I don't want to say anything about Charlie's vintage, but at the other end of the vintage spectrum, we also have our public finance and diversity fellow. Fortunately, has found someone to work with us who is not even old enough to drink yet. Justin's approval comes to us from the University of Albany. He's a very aggressive student, graduated in 3 years. So glad to have him on board. I had a chance to spend some time with him a couple weeks ago. Always going to see bright young faces. He will be with us for a year in the fellowship program, and we will continue. And under Matt Bergen's tutelage, try to recruit him as a full-time employee at DASNY. But Justin's a great member of the organization, and again, great to have the young folks in as well, adding that to DASNY.
Will he join us at board meetings as the other fellows have in the past?
He will. I'm not sure if he's here today or not. Yeah, there he is. Justin?
Justin,
Yes,
you don't
hi,
have
good morning.
to- I'm not asking you to say
He
anything.
needs to say something, Al.
All right, all right.
Justin, say hello, give a little bit of your background.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. First and foremost, I'm very excited to be here, and I just graduated from Albany. I studied business administration and finance and entrepreneurship, and I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate you.
Pleasure to have you.
Always good to see the future.
Yeah.
And speaking of the future, Steve is also going to have a summer internship program. That's been on hold for the pandemic, but that will be coming back up in 23. So excited about that as well. HR is working on that.
Outrageous. Thanks, Steve.
A feeder program, right?
Yeah.
We've got interns around on this floor
Yeah.
that are rising up through the ranks
All right.
as we speak.
They're coming for you.
Literally.
That's good. Let's make it happen.
Don't hurry, right? And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Kim, behind tab 4, you gonna supplement the financial report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Included in your packet is a monthly financial report and a quarterly treasurer's report. I'll defer comments on the monthly financial report to my mid-year financial update. But before I move on to that, I just want to highlight one item in the investment report. Our investment portfolio declined by approximately 50%, primarily due to the amounts previously provided by the state to defease bonds, which brings the total investment portfolio back within a somewhat normal range of $5.6 billion. Any questions before I move on to the mid-year update?
No.
Hearing none. Included in your materials is the current projected financial results for this fiscal year. As noted in my memo, the projected deficit has improved from 1.6 million to a projected deficit of just under 1 million at $800,000. Deficit is primarily due to the projected overrun for the CUNY program is approximately 1.5 million less than what was assumed in the adopted budget, which is offset by updated projections for our private clients and public school districts that show slight deficits in the projected surpluses. Although we're projecting total operating expenditures to come in approximately 4.2 million under budget, most of our operating costs are allocated to our public clients, which generally have revenue to match projected costs. So this limits the impact on our deficit and surplus from operations. As reported in the monthly financial report, salaries continue to be under budget and is projected to come in well under budget as the pace of hiring continues to be slower than expected. In addition to a number of departures have offset our new hires. Health insurance is projected to come in approximately 500,000 over budget. This is primarily due to increased participation on the retiree side. Retirement and Social Security is projected to be under budget and will offset the health insurance premiums. Management and operations is mostly on budget with some minor projected overruns in certain categories. Our pass-through expenses are significantly up, primarily due to our post-employment benefit projections. When we adopted the budget, we're working off the most recent actuarial evaluations, which changed significantly with the evaluation we received in May. Almost all of this expense gets allocated to our public clients and is carried as a receivable on our balance sheet. So you'll see minimal impact to surplus or deficit from operations. Any questions?
Kim, it's Al. The post-employment benefits matter has always been a bit confusing to me. We show it as a receivable.
Mhm.
And that is because, well, certainly isn't because we are not required to pay money to post-employment benefits. So why? It's a technical question. I suppose we should do it after the meeting, but I'm just curious. How do we?
We're to estimate what our cost would be if everyone retired and what our expenses would be based on actuarial assumptions. And because that is mostly funded by the state, we
Yes.
book a receivable.
Okay.
Assuming that the state is the one that will be covering that expense. And then we have a small reserve that we have on our books for a portion that technically, assumingly would be the portion from our private clients, excuse me.
All right, so the private client portion of that, the allocation is greater or smaller?
Small.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, Kim, I know I sound, well, just, I have no knowledge, and I apologize for that, but I've always found that a curious way of doing the numbers, but it's because we get the money from the state that we book it as receipts.
Yes, we take a pay as you go approach. So we
Okay.
pay the expense that's incurred.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, thank
Thank
you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there questions for Kimberly? Hearing none, then we're going to move to the public finance report. Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the members' materials are the standard public finance reports. Since the last board meeting, we priced the Rochester Institute of Technology transaction. It was about $109 million. I'm happy to say that we priced into a very strong market. There was a lot of investor demand. And the deal was heavily oversubscribed, and it was an excellent pricing. And RIT was really very, very pleased with the execution. I also note that we received a nice note from the banker who was conveying some of the thoughts of the client, and RIT was noted sort of the efforts at good customer service and the efficiencies that we've undertaken in the last couple of years, and is really spoke very highly of the service that they received. And I'd just like to thank the folks who worked on that transaction, because they did a tremendous job. Brief market update. The Fed is expected to meet next week. They're expected to raise rates again. The market is expecting a 50 basis point increase. Total year-to-date new issuance volume for 2022 is approximately $369 billion. That's down about 18% from last year. This week's supply is estimated to be in line with recent averages at about 6.4 billion. Tax-exempt bond yields were lower yesterday, with the 10-year decreasing by 2 basis points to close at 2.55. And it was unchanged at 30 years, with the 30-year AAA MMD remaining at 3.48. Likewise, on the U.S. government bond yield side, they too were lower, with the 10-year yield decreasing by 9 basis points to a 3.51%, and the 30-year Treasury decreasing by 10 basis points to 3.52%. Municipal bond funds reported outflows last week after reporting outflows previously. I would say, though, good news on the rate side. Rates have been coming down since the November board meeting. The 1-year MMD has decreased by 71 basis points. The 10-year decreased by 75 basis points, and the 30-year decreased by 58 basis points. During the same period, likewise on the Treasury side, the 10-year Treasury had decreased by 63 basis points, and the 30-year decreased by 76 basis points. I just wanted to note, as I had mentioned at last month's board meeting, we have an underwriter RFP out on the street. We actually have received the proposals now. If any of the board members receive any inquiries, just please put those on to our procurement office. And we expect to conclude the review process by the end of the year. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Are there questions? Hearing none, we're going to move to the construction report. Steve.
Thank you, Al. Good morning, everyone. Just quickly, a few stats from the last reporting period. Start with a couple of new projects. We've got a new project at York College. This is an interiors job, about $20 million. And at SUNY UB Clement Hall, a renovation of that hall for $5.2 million. We did complete an OMH project at South Beach PC over on Staten Island. It was an HVAC upgrade for about $25 million. As far as expenditures go, the period ending October 2021, we had expended $264 million. The period ending October 2022, we have expended $360 million. So a net gain of about $96 million. A couple of program and project updates. I'll start with SUNY. The capital projects I've reported on in the past at UAlbany, New Paltz, and FIT continue to progress. They are progressing on schedule and budget. Only minor delays at the FIT project known at this time. We do have 22 SUNY summer projects queued up for 2023, located at Albany, Alfred, Buffalo University, Delhi, Geneseo, New Paltz, Oneonta, and Purchase. The total value of those 22 is $36 million. And we continue to work on the Alfred Mackenzie Hall project, phase 3B and 3C, which we're hoping to conclude in August of 2023. On the CUNY front, Ruben and I again met with CUNY facilities executive staff. That was last Wednesday, November 30th. We discussed a number of issues and items, including our construction contracting procurement process, project planning for scope, budget, and schedule, data transfer between our project management systems, and just overall studying and building efficiencies into our processes from start to finish. Good meeting. OMH, heavy project load. We have new projects added at Rockland, St. Lawrence, and Mohawk Valley PCs, in addition to very large capital projects underway at Capital District, Central New York, Western New York Children's, and Mid Hudson. Just a couple of admin items. We are recruiting continuously. We've got 20 open positions right now. We added 32 positions to the construction division during 2022 so far, 17 retirements. So there was some catch-up work to do coming out of COVID. I will note that our HR staff is doing a fabulous job. The numbers up there have decreased, but the capacity has increased. They're doing very good work for us. Couple other quick admin items. We concluded our search for a senior managing director, project support services technical position. Joe Christian will begin in the position on Monday, December 12th, this coming Monday. Joe is both a New York State licensed professional engineer and an attorney. He comes back to DASNY following stints with Caterpillar and General Electric. Joe was a DASNY PM for 15 years, concluding in 2001. His responsibilities will include overseeing code compliance, interior design, project controls, which consists of both estimating and scheduling, safety and sustainability, energy and environmental programs.
Sounds like a great hire.
Good find.
Rehire.
Good refine. I've been recruiting Joe for 20 years. And I think we finally wore him down.
All right. Congratulations.
Yeah, the addition of that position rounds out a reorg of the construction division where 2 support tracks, project support services, admin, and technical will support our downstate, upstate, and Western New York design and construction operations group. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
How's the big job up in Albany?
It got bigger. We just received in information from our design build team regarding the original ask, which was for 750 million. We are tasking them now with taking a look at the additional funding that was added into the project, which means one more of the 5 distributed labs can come into this project. So, which is Biggs Laboratories. So,
We look forward to ribbon cutting on.
oh God. Looking around this table, maybe one will be out. Lisa can gut it out that long, but yeah. I'm looking forward to a contract with the design build team and maybe a groundbreaking of an early package. That's what I look forward to.
Fingers crossed. Thank you. I had a chance yesterday, Steve, to walk around a bit in Fitterman Hall.
Oh,
I've not done that before. It's been a cornerstone of every report you've given for the last year. But what an interesting piece of work that is. It's the design there's. I don't know anything about construction, Steve. I just liked it.
you liked it.
I liked it, right?
Yeah, it was a very
It's the
good project.
chairman's seal of approval.
We need that.
Really? Thank you. So there are no questions for Steve? Then I'm going to ask for a motion to go into a quick closed session to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular corporation and matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. May I have that motion? So, thank you. Is there a second? Sure. Thank you, Lisa. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed to the closed session? Are there any abstentions to the closed session? Right. Vote for it. Hearing none, we are going into closed session.
Okay, so at this point, we will turn off the recording, please. Amanda, if you could start. the recording. Thank you.
Deb, Amanda, thank you both. Let the record reflect that the board has just gone back to a public session from a closed session. During the closed session, no decisions were made. That's important for the record. All right, we have one final item on the agenda, and it is to have the board consider the retention of special counsel. At the last meeting, I offered that there were certain circumstances that suggested that the board might want to have its own counsel. I continue to believe that that's the case. I've looked at a couple of firms, well, several actually, and I've decided that the firm of Friedman Kaplan is the firm that I'd like for the board to retain. I don't know that you've had enough information about the firm, but that if you choose to take a look, please do. There is a particular partner at that firm that I'd like to have give us a hand in the event we need a hand. His name is Robert Sherlock Smith, and he is a former Associate Justice of the New York Court of Appeals. Very level-headed fellow and somebody I've worked with in the past. So there is a memorandum here. I think you all have received this in the emails. It is to the board from me that is entitled Retention of Special Counsel. And then there is a resolution which, if approved, would allow us to retain special counsel. It may be that the board does not need this. It may be that we don't have to go to Judge Smith. But in the event members, all of us, or even a few of us, should come to the conclusion that we need better advice, I'd like to have that opportunity. I also want to make it clear that this is not in any manner intended to slight our own legal staff. It's important that they continue to do the great work they're doing. If the board requires or believes it needs additional help, we'll get it. But not without notification to staff, and certainly not without notification. So, are there any questions that I can answer?
Have you worked?
Now, this is Joan. I don't remember seeing a memo from you. Do you?
I would be happy to send it. It was in draft form as of late last evening, Mr. Chair. So I apologize if I missed a communication. I've not forwarded that to the board members. I'd be happy to do that
Please do.
now, those who are present.
And Mr. Chair, I have a technical one as well.
Sure.
So, based on our
So I'm
procurement.
going to spend your money.
My bonus money, right? Big bonus money. Based on our procurement guidelines, so typically we go through a procurement process for everybody we hire. We do have exceptions when I deem it is necessary to do a special one-off procurement. And we've internally with procurement and with general counsel determined that for this specific assignment, it makes sense for us to have a non-panel firm provide counsel to the board, so they can then, so our panel firms can compete for wherever they want to compete without a conflict coming up.
Thank you, sir.
So we have reviewed the firm. We certainly agree that they're a stellar firm, and so no question there. And so I have approved this as a sole source procurement.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Single source.
Single source, thank you.
Single source, is that what it's called?
Yes, got my source.
Between singles.
Well, sole means no one else can do it. Single
I
means let's take the one firm to do it.
I see. Thank you.
So, and Steve has more sole source issues, and they come up to the trust.
I'm sorry that my little memorandum did not get circulated. It's only 3 paragraphs. The last one being a reference to the resolution. It describes very simply the documents that have been produced in the cannabis decision making. It suggests that board members had raised questions about their roles and responsibilities as board members, and it goes on to suggest that this decision requires an exception to the procurement guides. That's as much as it says. And Sarah, thank you. Wouldn't have been possible without you. I'm about to ask for a motion to approve this, unless there are questions. Are there?
I have a question.
Yes,
How would we collectively as the board decide to use this council? If we decided we needed it? I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make any sense?
I understand precisely what you're saying.
That's
Yes, right. Just with a D. We're going to have the bat signal.
Be tough to see today, though.
The idea would be that if a need arises because a member believes it's important to consider bringing Judge Smith on to give us a hand, I would then call all the members.
Okay.
Make the phone calls or send the emails to make sure that the members have an opportunity to respond. I would not ask for his help unless a majority of the members agreed.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
Would it be in the event of litigation, correct? Or
No
projected
question. It may
litigation?
just be about questions. We may have questions that are cannabis related. Maybe staff is busy. Maybe the board, somebody on the board raises a question. I'd like to be able to pick up the phone and call all of you all first, and then to call Judge Smith.
Yep.
Questions? Hearing none, may I have motion, please, to approve the resolution? I'll make that up. Thank you very much, Jerry. Wellington, second. Thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions?
One abstain.
I'm sorry. Oh, hey, Adrian, thank you. So we have one abstention.
Without any prejudice, just abstain from the vote. I just haven't seen the materials and prefer not to vote.
And that's absolutely rational. Thank you. So we've got all the members present, save one, voting in favor and one abstention. Am I correct about that? Okay. Then the resolution, the motion carries, the resolution passes. Thank you all very much. Is there any further, well, when do we meet again?
The next meeting is scheduled for January 4th. We're expecting a governance committee meeting the day before on January 3rd. And as we are doing now, we expect a video conference from all three of the DASNY boardrooms.
Sarah, thank you very much.
Do you think we need finance on the third, Portia? I was supposed to be here, but all. Well, you don't know yet.
Sure, not sure yet, Jerry,
Okay.
but I'm hoping so.
Then I wish everybody a happy holiday, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And then ask whether there's any further business to come before this board.
I've been drinking.
Did you bring it? And may I have a motion, please, to adjourn? Thank you, Wellington. Lisa, thank you for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're out of here.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.